Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett. I just got done watching yesterday's video. Man, Rhett, you were a real pill yesterday. I hope you do better today. Okay. Usually when she gives a kiss like that, that's not a good sign. Usually that's what she does when she's kind of rebelling. Um, all right, so yeah, we're kind of shaking out an architecture here. It is very difficult to do to do an architecture very well if you don't know what you're doing. Right? So I mean, I think that makes sense. And the thing is that like I remember years and years ago, like in the 19, I want to say 1998 or 1999, I was working for Accenture, and no, it was before it was Accenture. It was Anderson Consulting. I was working for Anderson Consulting on a huge project, and so Anderson Consulting had they were like one of the very first times that I had ever kind of run across sort of the concept of, hey, let's just hire really intelligent people that are winners. You know, people who've had a long history of winning, and let them figure it out. Like, kind of just throw them into the fire and let them figure it out. And I feel like they did have a lot of luck and success with that early on because I feel like there was just like when they would take a winner and throw them in the fire, they were surrounded by like nine people with experience. But I the whole kind of scheme started to fall apart on them because they kind of got to the point where there would only be like one person that had a lot of experience and they had nine winners and only one. I think that later on became the concept of fake it till you make it. Like it's never easy to fake it till you make it, but it is feasible to fake it to you till you make it if like you work in a place where 9 out of 10 people have already made it, and then you can kind of sort of copy them and try to figure out how to do things. But like if 9 out of 10 people are faking it, or if you have like a bunch of people who have made it but they're just faking that they made it, things kind of go off the rails pretty quick. So anyways, I don't know what I'm doing with ThreeJS. I did that last project, spent about a year on it. I built a couple small projects early, and basically when I got to the end of the project, I and these are just personal projects. By the time when I got to the end of the project, I'm like, I have no idea what I just did. So then last year I spent a whole year just grinding out stuff, and I ended up building a pretty neat application, but the architecture was just unscalable. I just could not make improvements on it. With one exception, I was able to add a bunch of mesh types, so you cubes and cylinders and planes and dodahedrons and all those sorts of things. And it was really easy, fast, made sense. It was fun. But like whenever I would try to do on the other extreme, whatever, I would be like, oh, I want to make one small change for animations, like something that I literally thought was going to take 2 days would take a month and a half. So that was the extreme. Lights were kind of in the middle. Like I could do light stuff, and like something that probably should have taken a day, that would have taken like a day with that would take a day with the meshes would take 3 or 4 days, and so and that was because like when you have a light is a kind of a standalone application item, but when you have a mesh is part of a larger thing, which is a oh no, so a mesh is part it contains a material and a geometry. So whenever I was modifying the geometries, like making it from like a cube to like a sphere, I was actually changing one of the underlying things so the ID wouldn't change. So like the complexity was a lot lower. And that was probably the main motivation or the thing that ended up making me say, oh, I need to create my own IDs. Like that, I had to do a huge refactor. But anyways, I noticed that yesterday when I did this camera by ID, I actually said I'm turning a WebGL renderer and it never caught that. So I do think it's probably a good idea to say const camera and then say that that is a 3 perspective camera. Equals this thing right here. And I'm really surprised that I don't have to like force it, like saying like as unknown and then like doing this like as unknown and then as 3, like that lets me do that. But once I do add that, and then it's weird, right? Because I would have thought that it would break. Oh, return camera. And then that. So because it's like, hey, that's a camera. So what we want is a 3 perspective camera. Now there's only 2 kinds of cameras, is my understanding. I believe there's only 2 kinds of cameras. So there's a perspective and a different type of camera. I can't remember what it's called. But the other one is just, I have never had any fun with it. I don't understand why it exists. But isometric camera or something like that. But basically, it doesn't change the size of things that are farther from you. It like does all the shadowing and everything. It shows things that are closer in front of things that are farther, but everything's the same size. I don't know why you'd ever want that. I've never heard a good answer, but that. So now I'm going to, so yeah, so we fixed that. That was like a potential bug. I don't know that that type scripting thing would have ever actually been a bug, but it probably would have prevented an upgrade at some point. At some point, though, I'm sure they will update the code to catch things like that. So now, basically, ST camera. So this is our showtime and space description of what we have on the screen. So, or what we're using for ThreeJS. So in our ST camera, I want to add something, and what I want to add is a 3 camera, a 3 perspective camera. And I believe I'm going to look and just to double check, I think with renderer, yeah, I add the word 3 in front of it, which I believe is the future is going to lower the confusion of this application of maintaining this application big time. So 3 dot, and yeah, I don't know why it does that, but every time you dot, and it's a perspective camera. Now, oddly enough, ThreeJS, Angular does not, or yeah, the Angular and the IDE, this whole thing doesn't know how to sort of, it hasn't figured out that this is what I want. And I want to say import star as 3 from 3. Now it surprises me that it can't figure that out since I've done this exact same line over and over again in different places. But what it does tell me is that it doesn't work the way I thought it worked. I thought it sort of just went and found other places. So this is what we want. This is the whole point. It basically found a couple places where the application is breaking. The second thing tells us why it's breaking. It says 3 camera is declared here, and then it says that, hey, up here in our 3 camera service, I'm not returning I'm not honoring the SD camera. So what it wants is a camera. So I have the camera ID, so I can now go to, well, I do need to inject our camera service. And it doesn't look like I'm already injecting stuff, so I could just say private And then I believe it's camera service, which is of type camera service. And we are going to have to inject the camera service. And so now we have it, and it didn't even ask, it just did it for us. It injected it, and it injected it from the right spot. I know it's the 3 one. So anyways, so now we can just create a camera service, right? We can just say this dot camera service dot create camera, and we give it our camera ID. We want it create camera. Wow. Okay, and we have to give it a frustrum, which is here. Lordy. Okay, so let's see. Const frustrum is equal to 50. Now, my understanding is frustrum is like how wide the camera's front is. So now I'm going to say comma frustrum, and then down here I'm going to say frustrum. Okay, so we still have a problem, and that is that our aspect ratio. So our aspect ratio, typically you want your aspect ratio to be the same as the height over width of what you're doing. So if you don't do it that way, I don't really know. I don't really understand the history behind it. I would love to understand that. But basically right now, our things are, what we draw is 50 by, or like 250 by 250 or something like that. So it's an aspect ratio of 1. If you don't match those up, if the width of the and the height with that ratio, you'll end up with like distorted things. So, and I guess I should call it aspect ratio. I don't know why I always type ration in. And then frustrum, aspect ratio, and then what else are we missing? Oh, and then I think I want to. Okay, what is the start aspect? Okay, so actually I should have just used this, and I think I should just call this aspect ratio. So when I create a camera, I'm assuming that I know what the aspect ratio is. I do not know if that's going to end up being right. We might end up having to do a refactor on this in the future. All right, what else are we missing? What are we missing? Near and probably far. Near is equal to 0.01. And far. Oh, wait. Cray. Okay, const near is equal to 0.01 and const far is equal to 100. So near is like anything that's closer than 0.01 it's not going to draw. Anything that's farther than 100, it won't draw. So that is interesting. It'd be fun to play with those two now that I think about it. Like it would be interesting to see, can we put 0 in there? All right, so now we can add our camera, our 3 camera, comma, camera. This dot camera service. And then camera ID. Oh, and it's not, it's this dot camera service. Did this for the, I did this that same thing on the renderer yesterday. All right, so now it's all, everybody's working. I believe, like, technically the app is doing something a little weird because it's making its own camera. So we end up with, like, it creates the camera itself. Actually, it just doesn't use the service at all. It just makes its own, damn camera. And who cares? It doesn't matter. Let's see, where are we on time? 16 minutes. Okay, so that's a good amount of time. All right, so now the next thing we're going to need to do, I'm just going to start winding things down here. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting. Rhett is getting to be more and more of a problem, I think. But the reality is that I work in my office most of the time in this room, and my wife works downstairs in our basement. And she can't go down to my basement because my wife works with a lot of chemicals and stuff, and birds have very, very sensitive, their lungs and stuff aren't nearly as robust as mammal lungs. So she really can't be down there. And so other than for a couple hours when me and my wife watch Netflix at night, she's just by herself in the living room. Not technically completely by herself because we have cats and dogs and stuff, but the cats and dogs can come in here and hang out with us or whatever they want. So she gets kind of lonely. So it just is irresponsible for me to leave her out there. I was kind of hoping I was hoping you'd be a value add. I really was.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I guess Brett just said, wow. I guess she's like thinking I'm being selfish. But I was hoping she'd be a value add. I wonder if she is. But anyways, so next thing I want to add is a scene.
Right.
So right now basically we're sort of setting into a pattern here where we have our camera, 3 renderer. So we'll have our scene, 3 scene, and our ST scene, and then hopefully we can get our scene, and then hopefully the renderer we can render at least a blank canvas in here. Right now we do have a canvas in there. If we inspect it, we can see that there is a canvas and it is the right size, or at least it was. Yeah, so the next, I would hope that if we actually render it, even if there's nothing in there, that what we'll see is it'll be black. And then I'm thinking maybe what might make some sense, because so technically what's going to happen is, how like I did all this work in here and it's kind of all for naught. There's just a bunch of logic in here. The exact same thing is happening in here. I think really honestly the viz component should probably just have an input of a viz ID, and it knows its viz ID, and that's about all it knows. Maybe it knows this visualization thing, but when we go to create a base component, I think we do that in here, right? ST renderer. Yes, this renderer. Yes, get base renderer. I think probably to be able to do anything interesting, I need to have like a get cube renderer, get plane renderer, get like uh, or get basic cube renderer, and maybe have it like randomly select one that it creates or something, and then maybe set up like a button where you can just click pop 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 and you'll just get a random one, and it'll just sort of lay out. I think this is absolutely positioned right now, but maybe not. If it's not absolutely positioned, then I guess yeah, it is positioned absolutely. So yeah, so the next one will be laid out. We'll do some calculation and figure out exactly where the next one should lay out, and maybe be able to have like three or four of them, and just have them randomly a button that just randomly fills it. And I feel like that is done. Then we'll be done with getting started. But before that'll be done, we'll have to have our basically everything that's in our TypeScript done up. So right now in 3 we have a camera, we have a geometry, we have a material, a mesh, and a renderer. So we'll probably need the doppelgangers of the ST and all 5 of those in both of these, and then some basic ones, and then a little bit of that. And so hopefully we can have something nice, in the and be able to do sort of commit this branch and merge this branch in and start a new branch, which then at that point we can decide like what the new branch thing is, because there's still, gosh, so much like just basic, I don't know, just no fun work to do. We still need some sort of like a service that will provide all these basic defaults, instead of just hard coding numbers, and you know and stuff like that. So that would be to do that. And then before we can even check all that in, we have to have all the unit tests, and probably specific unit tests for all these different units and stuff. So yeah, it's going to take a while. It's definitely going to take a lot longer than I would have guessed at the beginning. And gosh, I hope it pays off, because I was like, yesterday I was like, well, if we're still toiling away at the end of March, we'll have to maybe rethink this whole concept. But now I'm just like, man, we're going to still be toiling away, because it's going to take a good bit of time to write all the unit tests and end-to-end tests. But you know, uh, yeah, I can't think of a better way to do it. Trying to be like, I'm not like trying to be, I'm not trying to be slow. I remember once I was a coach and I was coaching the team, and I remember like I was trying to get all the players to be to sort of reach out their potential. I was trying to follow all the rules of the league and all that. And I remember one parent going, "Man, if you're not even going to try to win, at least let my kid play." And I was just like, man, for some reason I'm projecting that I'm not trying to win for the team. And we we did, and I was trying to win. And so I might be projecting that I'm trying to go slow. I'm not really trying to go slow. That's not the point. I am trying to learn as much as I can, and I'm trying to not box myself in, paint myself into a corner. Now, on the whole trying to win thing, okay, so I coached, and for like the first 4 or 5 years of coaching, it was absolutely incredible. I could take any team, no matter how bad or how good they were, and turn them into a 500 team. That 500 meant we won as many games as we lost. It was incredible. Like one year I'd end up with just a highly over talented team, and we'd win half our games. When next year we'd have like a totally under talented team, we won half our games. And I'd made one small change that turned me from a team that normally wins like half their games and typically will win around 90% of the games, with a few like undefeated seasons where we literally just won every game. And there was one change that really, really made a huge difference. And that change was, when things are working, don't coach. Just chill, just relax, just enjoy the scenery. And when things aren't working, start making changes. Try anything, try everything. So one thing I noticed is with other coaches that I coached against, they almost always did the exact opposite. The minute they started losing, they would just quit coaching. They would literally just kind of sit there, go find a spot, a corner, or some spot on the floor to stare at, and just sort of disconnect. And then whenever things were going great, they would just actively be coaching. And when things are going for great for them, they probably weren't going great for me. So I would be actively coaching. So then that would provoke them into actively coaching. So normally they would just start changing things up, and then the minute they started losing, they quit changing things up. You know. So, anyways, yeah, that's my advice on that. Um, but yeah, so we got a long ways to go. I'm not trying to go slow. It's definitely going to take a long time as all the things go out. And then I don't even know. I don't know how confident I am that that's going to be a good idea. This I would never, ever, 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 ever do this at work, right? Like at work, you got to get shit done. You've got to build stuff. You know, by this point, we've been working on this thing for 31 days. In 31 days, they should be able to move things around and control the width and height, and they should be able to do a lot of stuff. Now that's assuming, that I'm getting to spend 5, 6, 7 hours coding, and it just heads down. Now I wouldn't have the deep understanding. I wouldn't just be typing in, you know, easily able just to type stuff in and know exactly what's happening. But you can't have the luxury of just taking your sweet time to make sure everything works. But at the same time, we'll never get anywhere if I don't actually try to make this stuff happen. So, I am trying to make this stuff happen, but, you know, and I am, like I said, I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye. Say bye, Rhett. Say bye. Now, that is one thing about African Greys I could tell you, is they will not do what you tell them to do. They will typically, if they kind of have to want to do it. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.